Well, good afternoon, gentlemen. Are we ready to get started?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for quickly getting here. I know we don't have a whole lot of time. So if you don't mind, I will have the revisers go over the spreadsheet they put together for us explaining House Bill 2079 and then the two well, I guess three, but the two other bills or bill concepts that could potentially go together. So Natalie or Jason, or actually, who do we just have? We just have Natalie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have David here too from Ways and Means. So if we have any specific Ways and Means questions. But House Bill 2079 transfers duties concerning the address confidentiality program, which is commonly referred to as the Safe at Home program, and the registration of charitable organizations from the Secretary of State to the Attorney General. So the House version of this bill, sections 1 through 12 transferred the duties related to the registration of charitable organizations from the Secretary of State to the Attorney General's office. The Senate version does basically the same thing, but they did add an amendment to those provisions that provide that no state agency or official can impose an annual filing or reporting requirement on a private foundation or a charitable trust that is more stringent than requirements in Kansas or federal law. And then the House version sections 13 through 20 were the provisions transferring the duties of administrating that address confidentiality program from the Secretary of State to the Attorney General. And the Senate version related to those provisions is the same. They didn't make any changes there. So I can go ahead and stop on that bill if there are any questions, or I can go on to the other two.
Natalie, I just have one question. That the amendment the Senate made, didn't we make that amendment last year on this bill in House Judiciary? You don't recall? Come on, your memory is better than mine. My memory is in House Judiciary, we added that last year, but it was not brought to us this year, so we didn't add it, but that language sounds familiar to me.
Mr. Chairman, I would have to check on that, and I don't know if David knows or if any of our research colleagues know that offhand. We could check on that. I don't remember anything about that specifically, but we can definitely check.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Someone just, I don't know if this is appropriate, the reviser, but at some point I'd like for somebody to just explain to me what the Senate's reasoning or logic was in making that amendment. I'm not sure that's really, though, for the revisers, I think, about that.
Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was brought in the Senate Ways and Means Committee. It was an amendment that was requested in testimony simply to allow for private foundations not to receive additional reporting requirements by an agency as opposed to those that are found in federal or Kansas statutes. So the reporting requirements would just be those that we pass here in the legislature or those that are required by federal law, not one invented by an agency.
If I may, is there a problem with this? Is there some agency out there now that is imposing these kinds of requirements beyond those required by law? Or is this a prophylaxis for a problem that somebody thinks might happen someday?
I don't believe that came up in testimony that I'm aware of, so I wouldn't be able to answer what the current existing nature of those requirements are, whether in Kansas or in another state that may have triggered this. But I think that it's a pretty simple idea that reporting requirements should be the domain of the legislature and federal law and not of a agency's whim on that.
And Mr. Chairman, the reason that I ask is we spend a lot of time on the Joint Committee on Rules and Regulations looking at these kinds of reporting requirements. And the Attorney General is very diligent about looking at rules and regulations to see if there's statutory authority for it. And so if there's somebody sneaking it in now, I'd like to know about it because maybe we can just fix it with a phone call, literally. So I'm just trying to figure out why this is necessary, or where the idea came from. That's all.
Don't see any other questions. Natalie, would you like to continue?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The other kind of attorney general related issues that you guys could maybe talk about with this bill are House Bill 2412, which is similar to Senate Bill 264. That bill enacts the Kansas Fights Addiction Act to establish a grant program for the purpose of preventing, reducing, treating, and mitigating the effects of substance use and addiction. The House version of that 2412 passed the House 8143. The Senate version, Senate Ways and Means did make some changes to that. Essentially, they changed the membership of the board by removing one of the AG appointees to that board and adding a behavioral sciences and regulatory board appointee. And then they transfer some of the money that would be received from the opioid litigation into the K-Trax program. So that is that bill. And then the other bill came from Senate Judiciary, so I'm not sure if the Senate Ways and Means members are as familiar with this, but Senate Bill 56 would require the posting of human trafficking awareness notices approved by the Attorney General in certain businesses and in certain public places throughout the state. That passed out of the Senate 39-0, and then we did hear that and pass it out of House Judiciary Committee.
Any questions for Natalie on those two?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay. Give me, if you don't mind, 1 second just to visit with my side. Okay, we've had a chance to visit and would like to make an offer. We would propose accepting your amendments to House Bill 2079, so including that additional language on the reporting requirements, including the contents of Senate Bill 56, which passed your chamber 39-0. And then we would go with your version of the opioid bill, so Senate Bill 264, except instead of the $200,000 going to K-Trax, we would propose $100,000 going to K-Trax.
And if I might add, Mr. Chairman, this is the majority party's offer. This is not my offer. So I don't know what I'm going to do about this. They may persuade me to sign a report just to get this moved on, or they might not. We'll have to cross that bridge in a minute.
Okay, and I might just explain the reason that was put into the bill as an amendment. We've been using the fees from the pharmacists and the docs to fund this. And what happened was years ago, there was some federal grant money that took care of that. And as that disappeared, we started pushing more and more and more onto the pharmacists and the docs. And it's gotten to be a real issue. And so we felt like 200 would be about half, probably not even quite, of what their costs are today. So that's where we come up with the 200.
And by the way,
We'll conference here a little, okay? Thanks.
just like, my remarks, by the way, were not directed to the K-Trax funding, whether it's at the $100,000 or $200,000 level. If we're going to do this, that seems to be a good idea, one way or another. My problem is with the base bill and the whole concept of the Attorney General taking over litigations from municipalities, school districts, counties, and becoming the czar of opioid litigation. That's my problem. It's not the amendments that you all made.
Okay, thank you. We'll conference here. One thing that I failed to mention, this 200,000 would come after the cities and the counties are received their 25%. And we just feel like the 200,000 is a fair amount. I mean, we're talking, the type of drugs, Oxycontin and so forth. And I think that's a good place to use this money.
Right. Do you want to speak to your concern? Mr. Chairman, we certainly appreciate the position, and Representative Ralph is going to explain his concern, and then I think we're going to quickly cave. And so I'm just going to let Representative Ralph explain what his concerns are, just so on the record we understand what concerns we have. We appreciate the way you've set this up, and so that's why I think we're going to agree here shortly. So Representative Ralph.
Yeah, and very much understand the explanation and the logic behind that piece. Since we're working with a little bit of a situation where we don't know an exact total number, understand that we kind of end up at a rounded spot. But the thing that I specifically don't want to run into, particularly since we've got two separate funds being established in this statute, is I don't ever want to get to a circumstance or a situation somewhere down the road, because we have municipalities and counties that have, in essence, negotiated here away some rights to be a part of the municipality's fund. and would not ever want to get into a situation where, as the money became more difficult to come by, that someone started looking at this second fund or the municipality fund as a location for this just because they happen to be close together in the statute. So understand that the language is there at this point in time, but wanted to make sure that specifically then from an intent standpoint that we stated very clearly to the public that it is not the intention that at any point in time that the municipalities fights addiction fund would ever be a source for monies related to providing for K-Trax funding in any form or fashion, as that money has specifically been discussed and negotiated for by municipalities and counties that have waived rights to get to that spot. So I understand your reasoning completely, but wanted to make sure we stated very clearly that we view that particular fund as sacrosanct, if you will, and would not ever want to see that that invaded, at least to the extent that we can do that from this legislature for any time in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And we had the same concern. I failed to say that early on, but yes, we definitely want to make sure that the cities and counties are taken care of.
Okay, so then I will make a new offer, which says we'll take your position on 2079, your position in Senate Bill 264, and then also add in Senate Bill 56. Everything into 2079. And Senator Clays has to, let me think, I've got a list over here of things.
Well, thank you. We'll accept the offer. I know you guys are on a short time and we've got another one coming up too. So thank you a lot. Appreciate it.
I thought about whether or not to sign this report, and I'm very, very tempted to go to agree to disagree on this, because I think the underlying bill, what the AG is doing, is absolutely wrong. He's taking over litigation that belongs to cities and counties and school districts, not to the AG. But I think this does accurately reflect probably the will of the House, and I recognize that if I take you to an agree to disagree, that we'll be back here in a few hours and you'll still get it done. So rather than be obstreperous or tedious, I will hold my nose and sign this report in the expectation that at some future date there will be courtesy extended by my good friends.
Thank you. Senator Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share the concern of the ranking member on the House side in terms of that. And we honestly did not have a discussion about that. I think on the Senate side, in Ways and Means, not that we only think about money, but I think it was an opportunity for us to look at having some funds that could meet what is a growing and a huge problem, not only in Kansas, but other states. And I think all of us felt very good that we had a K-Trax program, and we saw that there was a solution to getting it funded as well as helping our cities and counties, and that potentially it might make whatever litigation was there actually function better. And we weren't really aware of what the minority member had said, but I certainly share his concerns about taking away those rights. And I highly value home rule and local control. And I do hope at some time in the future we might look at that and go on record that that is a concern that we should at least be aware of. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Well, thank you all. We'll have the revisers prepare us a conference committee report. It was good working with you all. Thank you.
It's good working with you also. Thank you.